What I want to
Beg
talk
your
about
pardon?
today, what I want to talk about today is are the requirements of tefillah for women and for men who find themselves in situations where they cannot fully daven. What we want to pin down what the minimum of tefillah is. But before I come to that, let me ask you if you have any questions of a halachic nature that you wish to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I have a question that's not halachic bidiyuk, but ethical kind of a common sense question. And I didn't know the best way to think about it. So I thought I would ask you.
Oh, and I will straighten you out with the single correct perfect answer. Very well. Okay,
You
fire
will
away.
direct you will direct me. Okay, so the situation is that I got onto a very, very crowded, cramped bus, and there
Oh,
was
and
very
they were
little.
probably members of the opposite sex on the bus, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I was, barely standing, and I saw this Haredi gentleman, at least 20 years younger than myself, and he was sitting, and next to him were his shopping bags.
Mm-hmm.
So he took up two seats, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought if I asked him to move his shopping bags, he still would not be able want to sit next to me, and vice versa. So I didn't know what to do,
What
but I didn't.
you're prejudiced? You wouldn't sit next to a Jew?
We'll get to that after I
Oh, okay.
enunciate my query. So
Okay.
yeah, so I didn't. I thought that asking him to move his shopping bags would be of no use because I know the culture. Then on the other hand, I thought that it was not right of me to request something that would impact my safety by me standing in this crowded bus. So I just didn't know what to do. Leave it. I mean, I can't go around being a police lady. And what does one do in a situation like that, as as a moral decision?
Before I focus on your question, let me deal with the background issues, and then we'll come to focus on your question. Rav Moshe Feinstein, have you ever been to New York?
I think so. Yeah, I have a daughter living in Brooklyn.
Oh dear, you have all my sympathy.
Thank
Um,
you.
I don't know much about New York, but Rav Moshe Feinstein lived in New York, and I suppose we must trust what he says when he describes New York City. He writes that, as bizarre as it may sound, he writes that in the New York City subway system, uh, the men and women traveling together in the subway cars touch each other. I know that sounds strange, but apparently that's the minhag in the New York subway, that men and women touch each other. Um, Now, someone asked him, does that mean I'm prohibited from traveling on the subway because I know I'm going to be touched by a member of the opposite sex? Um, uh, the tshuva of Rav Moshe Feinstein is that physical contact, touching members of the opposite sex, is prohibited if there is an erotic dimension to the touching. But if the touching is innocent of any eroticism, there's no particular prohibition at all. And therefore, in just about every case, there's no halachic objection to traveling on the subway during rush hour when you know that you will be in physical contact with members of the opposite sex. No, I suppose there are unusual people out there who do experience traveling in the subway as being erotically stimulating. I suppose that's possible, and I suppose it's true for someone. And if that's the case, then you have to find some other way to get where you're going. You can't travel on the subway during rush hour. Okay, that's the background information. Now, let's focus on your specific question. In the case you describe, I presume, and let's just assume for a moment, that the young man you're referring to who occupied two seats, one for himself, one for his shopping bags, let us just assume for a moment that he paid only for one seat. You, on the other hand, let us assume, paid when you got on the bus, I'm sure, and you paid for a seat. He paid for one seat and he's occupying two. And therefore, halachically, it's perfectly clear that you have a halachic right, to occupy that seat. You paid for it, he did not, and therefore there's no objection to sitting there. Now, he, for reasons of his own, might not wish to sit next to a woman. Well, if he wishes not to sit next to a woman, well, okay, so he can stand up and carry his shopping bags. I mean, that's something he'll have to decide. But from the halachic point of view, there's no objection to you sitting there. Now, to focus even more precisely on your question, does it make sense for you to say something, to do something, to say, please, I want to sit down where your shopping bags are? You would, of course, say it in Yiddish, so he would understand. The answer to this question this is a question dealt with by the Magen Avram in his commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, and he says that tochacha, let's get that spelled correctly on chat, tochacha, rebuke, instructing someone to follow halacha correctly when they are on the wrong path. Tochacha, rebuke, is correct, and it's even a mitzvah. It's even a mitzvah, but only if there's some reasonable expectation that the person will listen to what you say and improve his ways. If there's some reasonable expectation that the person will pick up the shopping bags and put them on his lap so that you can sit in that seat, if there's some reasonable expectation that he will respond favorably to the rebuke, go for it, by all means. It's even a mitzvah to rebuke people. On the other hand, if there's no reasonable expectation that he will respond favorably and take away the shopping bags and let you sit there, then rebuking him would just transform him from a shogeg into a mazid, make matters from his point for him even worse, and therefore it's better to remain silent. Now, judging whether or not there's any reasonable expectation that he would improve his ways if you rebuke him, well, this is something which you're going to have to decide based on the situation. Okay? Tov, are there any other issues of a halachic nature that we should speak about before we get started with the material for today? The material for today has to do with tefillah, the minimum requirements of tefillah for women or for men who are unable, for whatever reason, to daven fully. So someone could be sick. There's no end of reasons why it might be difficult or impossible for someone to daven fully as one is supposed to. What's the minimum that halacha requires? Okay, shall I get that on the screen? I know how to do that. Click share. Voila. And click here. I did it. Oh, I'm so good. Okay. Here goes. Now there's a big machlokes between the Rambam and the Ramban. Let me tell you first the opinion of the Ramban. Ramban held that there is no such thing as a mitzvah of tefillah. There's no such thing as a mitzvah of prayer. Prayer is very good. It's commendable. It's all kinds of good things, but it's not obligatory. Not obligatory. Not obligatory. It's not a mitzvah except for eight tzara. Let's get that typed on chat. In times of trouble, if when the rockets are falling around you, eight tzara. In a time of trouble, then there's a mitzvah and a chiyuv, an obligation to daven. But when times are smooth and you don't find yourself in trouble, davening is good, commendable, praiseworthy, all kinds of good things, but not obligatory, not a mitzvah. That's the position of the Ramban. Now let's look at the position of Rambam. They, not surprisingly, disagree with each other. These are the words of Rambam. Mitzvahs aseh, it is a commandment of the Torah. L'hitpalel b'chol yom. Davening is a requirement once every day. Shinama, it says so in the pasuk. Va'avadetem et Hashem Elokeichem. The verse says you have to serve God. Mepi hashmuah, Torah sheba'al peh, lamdu, we learn from Torah sheba'al peh, she'avoda zo hi tefillah. The avoda, the service of God mentioned in the pasuk is tefillah. How do we know that? Why did Torah teach us that? Because of another verse. La'ovdo b'chol levavchem. You have to serve God with your heart. Amru Chachamim, what does it mean to serve God with your heart? Ezu avodah shebalev. What is service of God with your heart? Zo tefillah. That's referring to davening. That's prayers. So according to Rambam words from the Psukim, that tefillah, prayer, davening, is a mitzvah of the Torah, and you have to do it at least once every day. Let me just make a footnote. Avoda shebalev, service of God, using your heart with your heart. That's prayer. Rav Shimshon Hirsch had a slightly different understanding of these words. What is tefillah? According to Rav Shimshon Hirsch, avoda shebalev, working on your heart, improving yourself, making yourself a better person, making yourself a more spiritual person. Rav Shimshon Hirsch is not the only one who takes this approach. Rav Kook famously takes exactly the same approach. And here you see that the great rabbis divide into two camps. There are those like Rav Shimshon Hirsch and Rav Kook who hold that tefillah is an exercise in self-improvement. You are working on your heart, making yourself a better spiritual person. It's for your benefit that you pray. Davening is for you to improve yourself. This is approach of Rambam on the screen before us, and many poskim, and I'm confident if I say Rove, the majority of poskim, are not following the approach of Rav Kook and Rav Shimshon Hirsch. They're following the approach of the Rambam on the screen today, that the tefillah is for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you're using your heart, you're engaging your heart, engaging your mind in order to connect yourself with the holy, with the Kodesh, with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Okay, now we understand the position of Rambam, which is the position of the majority of poskim. Tefillah is a Torah obligation every day. Unlike the Ramban, who held it's a Torah obligation only ba'it tzara, only when you find yourself in trouble. Then Rambam goes on and says, Ein minyan tefillot min Torah. The number of prayers per day is not governed by the Torah, is not regulated by Torah. Ve'ein mishnah tefillah hazot min Torah. The text that we use to daven, the words that you use for davening, that's also not min Torah. As far as the Torah is concerned, there's no, the minimum number of prayers per day is one, and the words you use are, well, choose whatever words you want. There are no Torah rules about the words. Ve'ein letefillah zman kavua min Torah. Further, you can fulfill the mitzvah of tefillah any time during the day or night, as long as within each 24-hour period you daven at least once using whatever words you choose. You're fine as far as the Torah requirements are concerned. Lefichach, therefore, nashim va'avadim hayavim b'tefillah. Women and slaves are obligated to pray once a day using any text you choose. Since you can daven any time you want during the day or night, since there's no fixed time as far as Torah is concerned, there are no fixed times for tefillah. This is not a time-regulated mitzvah, and therefore applies to women equally with men. Okay, according to Rambam, women, min ha-Torah, have to daven once a day, doesn't matter when, and use any text. Make up the text ad hoc, make up the text as you go along. That's fine. And the same rule applies equally to men who are, for whatever reason, unable to fulfill all the rabbinic requirements of Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, a certain text. If you leave out certain words, you have to repeat. All of these are rabbinic requirements, not Torah requirements. And a man who, for whatever reason, is unable to fulfill all these rabbinic requirements, he is sick or in jail or whatever the problem is. Well, the minimum is the same for men and women. Ella, but there is one big requirement. There's one big requirement. Daven whenever you want, as long as it's at least once in every 24-hour period. Use whatever words you want. That's fine. Ella, but there is one requirement. Chiyuv mitzvah, the obligatory, the mandatory, the required way to daven, kachu, is as follows. You have to do it once a day, at least once a day. Magid shivcho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to begin by saying the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In order to fulfill the mitzvah of prayer, you have to begin with Shevach. You have to begin praising God. That has to be the opening of your tefillah, the opening of your prayer. Shevach, praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Achakach, after you have said something, choose the words, whatever words you want, but after you have said something, b'shvach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in praise of God, then shoel tzrachav. Then you have to ask, you have to state your requests, you have to request of HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzarich b'vakashav tkina, whatever it is you need. So the first element of prayer must be Shevach, praise. The second element of prayer must be bakasha, petition, request of something from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the order is absolutely vital. Achakach, first praise, the achakach, and only afterwards the bakasha. The achakach, and the third element of prayer, noten shevach v'hodaya l'Hashem ala tova she'ishpia lo kol echad lefi kocho. You have to express todah, thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all the good that he has done for you and for us. Oh, according to the Rambam, the minimum requirement of prayer has three structural elements, and the structure of the prayer, once a day or night, whenever you want, the structure has to be correct. And the structure is Shevach, praise, followed by Bakasha, requests, and ending with Hodaya, thanks to God. Now, let me just suggest one paragraph from the Siddur, from the standard text of the Siddur, which is structured in exactly this way. Here is an example of what the Rambam would consider the minimum fulfillment of prayer. If you begin like it says in the standard Siddurim, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hama'avir sheina me'einai usnuma me'afapai. We praise God for waking us up in the morning. Oh, that's a praise of God. God, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, is ma'avir sheina me'einai usnuma me'afapai. God wakes us up in the morning. That's a praise. Oh, that's the first element which is required. Then you can go on and say, then comes a bakasha, the second element of prayer. Habituate us, a prayer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Please habituate us, get us into the swing of keeping Torah and mitzvahs. Have us, but please help us attach ourselves and cling to mitzvahs. Please do not tempt us to do sins. Do not try us and do not bring us into any situation of bizayon, shame. These are all requests, the second element of required prayer. Al tashled banu yetzer hara. Do not allow the yetzer hara to dominate us. Another request. Keep us far away from bad people. Please help us be attached to the Yetzer HaTov and to good deeds. Help us conform to the requirements of Torah and mitzvahs. Let us be smiled upon by our friends. Let me be smiled upon by my friends and by all the creatures in the world. And please do a lot of chesed, do a lot of mercy for me. Oh, so the first two elements of prayer are enunciated in this paragraph. And then the paragraph ends, Baruch atah Hashem gomel chasadim tovim lamo Yisrael. Thanks, an expression of hodaya, an expression of thanks to God for doing chesed for us and for all the Jewish people. So if you are seeking a ready-made, fixed nusach, fixed text, which fulfills the minimum requirement of tefillah, according to the Rambam, and as I said before, most poskim are following the opinion of the Rambam. Here you have, in the standard text of the Siddur, a few lines, a very short prayer, just a few lines, which fulfill the minimum requirements according to the Rambam, beginning with Shevach, in the middle, Bakashot, and at the end, Hodaya. I'm not saying, and no one says it has to be this text. You're free to make up your own text as you go along, but if you're lazy, like I am, then it's good to have a ready-made text available, and then you can just zip through it and you are done. Okay, that's the minimum. Now, I said that this is the opinion of the majority of poskim, and that's true. But of course, we would want to take a look in the Shulchan Aruch and see the psak, the decision of the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch, here's the text of the Shulchan Aruch. נשים ועבדים, אף על פי שפטורים מקריאת שמע, חייבים בתפילה. Women are exempt from Kriya Shema because it's a mitzvah aseh shazman grama. But women are obligated to daven. Exactly the shita of the Rambam is now embraced by the Shulchan Aruch as being the definitive halacha. The mitzvah aseh shazlo grama tefillah min ha-Torah does not have a fixed time during the day or night. Women are obligated. It's the opinion of Rambam, not Ramban. It's the opinion of Rambam, which is embraced by the Shulchan Aruch, and not surprisingly, that becomes the shita of the vast majority of poskim in subsequent generations. Now, let's take a look at the principal commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. Magen Avram writes, and Kasav Rambam. We know the opinion of Rambam. The sphere-related tefillas mitzvah aseh d'oraisa. Rambam was the one, not like Ramban, but Rambam holds that tefillah is a Torah obligation because of that verse. La'avdu b'chol levavchem v'chol nafshechem. Midraisa, as far as Torah requirements are concerned, daven pa'am achas. It's enough to daven once a day, and kol nusach sheyitzeh, whatever text you want. Lachein, therefore, nahagu rov nashim. Therefore, most women, Magen Avram wrote this back in the 17th century Poland, back in the days when people were from, most women have the practice she'ein mitpalelot b'tmidot. Most women are not davening regularly. That means most women are not regularly reciting Shmona Esrei, the Amidah. Why not? Mishum da'omrim miyad b'boker samuch l'natila eza bakasha. Because when women wake up in the morning, they do ritual washing of their hands, and then they say some bakasha, they say some little prayer, whether it's the fixed text from the Siddur or a prayer which they make up on the spot, it doesn't matter. And midaraisa, daibazeh, as far as Torah is concerned, that is sufficient. And as far as the Rabbanan requirements of Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, the fixed text, and if you make certain mistakes, you have to repeat again. As far as all these rabbinic requirements of prayer are concerned, well, they apparently don't apply to women at all, because they're all mitzvahs aseh shazman grama. They're all time dependent. Shachris has a specific time, Mincha a specific time, and so forth and so on. That's the shita of the Rambam. Now, he knows the Ramban. I mentioned the Ramban in passing, but he also knows the Ramban. According to the Ramban, davening is always midrabanan, except for Eit Tzara, when the rockets are falling around you. V'chein das rova poskim, majority of poskim, and he quotes the Tosafot and the Smak, who said mitzvah litpalel be'eit tzara. If you find yourself be'eit tzara, with the rockets falling around you, then of course, you're going to want to fulfill the Torah obligation, the Torah mitzvah of tefillah, if you find yourself in that situation. Now, let's just think about it for a moment. All of this leads to the clear conclusion that a woman who chooses to daven Shmona Esrei, Shacharis, or Mincha, whatever it is, and she makes a mistake, fatal error. She omitted Ya'aleh v'yavo at a time when that's a fatal error in tefillah, and you have to repeat. She didn't say v'ten talu matar in the winter. A woman, according to this, a woman who made a big mistake in the Shemona Esrei is not obligated to repeat Shemona Esrei. She was not obligated to say it the first time around. And since she was not obligated to say it the first time around, then she surely is not obligated to repeat it. this conclusion clearly flows from all of the sources we've seen up till now. Let's go one step further with another great commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, the Aruch HaShulchan. Kisha nashim chayvot b'tefillah, when the Shulchan Aruch said that women are obligated to daven, well, al tefillah kavua, the Shulchan Aruch wasn't talking about Shmona Esrei, the Amidah, ella shemechuyavot lihitchanen lifnei Hashem b'tefillah v'tachanunim. All the Shulchan Aruch meant is that women are obligated to speak out, to utter, to say some prayer, sometime during the day. Well, now let's turn to the Hasidic perspective on women's obligation. Shulchan Aruch Harav, written by the Baal Tanya, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe in Hasidic circles. The Sefer is called Shulchan Aruch of the Baal Tanya, or Shulchan Aruch of the Admor, or Shulchan Aruch of Rav Shlomo Zalman. That was his name. Rav Shner Zalman was his name. Outside of Hasidic circles, the Sefer is also immensely influential, even outside of Hasidic circles. It's quoted on just about every page of the Mishnah Berurah, for example. Outside of Hasidic circles, it's called Shulchan Aruch Harav, right? It's from the bibliographical point of view, the name of the Sefer, the name he gave his Sefer is a little bit problematic. He called his Sefer Shulchan Aruch. And of course, everyone knows there's another famous Sefer with exactly the same name, the Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Karo, which of course creates massive confusion. If you're going to say Shulchan Aruch, how are you supposed to know which of those two Svarim the person is referring to? And therefore, the convention developed to add Harav. When you're speaking about the Shulchan Aruch of the Baal Tanya, Shulchan Aruch Harav, then you know it's not the Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Karo. But in any event, let's see the Hasidic perspective on this issue. Nashim v'avadim, women and slaves. We could devote another shiur, another time, to the status of avadim, slaves. That's an important issue, but not for today. The Shulchan Aruch Harav quotes the Shulchan Aruch, which in turn is quoting the Rambam, all of which is really quite common. I didn't calculate precisely, but I would estimate that around 80% of the Shulchan Aruch Harav is just direct word-for-word quotations of the Shulchan Aruch. And I would estimate that around 80% of the Shulchan Aruch it consists of just direct quotations from the Rambam. All this is quite common. Zmanei Tefillah and Medivrei Sofrim. The Torah does not fix the times of prayer. Now, of course, we're now reading Sefer Bereshis in Shul, and when we read Sefer Bereshis, we learn that the Avot, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, fixed the times of Tefillah, Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv. Rules and regulations instituted by Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have the status of being d'Rabbanan, and therefore the times of tefillah are d'Rabbanan and not obligatory for women, and indeed even men who, for whatever reason, are unable to do this. Of course, you're simply exempt if you can't do it. Iker mitzvah tefillah hi min Torah. The Torah requires some tefillah every day. That's the verse la'avda b'chol levavchem. What is avodah shebelev? Engaging the heart, engaging the mind, is what tefillah is all about. Ela she'ein la nusach yadua min Torah. Torah had nothing to say about the wording, the text of tefillah, and therefore you can daven with what words you want, as far as Torah is concerned. The fixed text that we have in the Siddur. All this is of rabbinic origin. Mishit palel pam achat b'yom b'layla. Once you've davened a single time, a single prayer, during the day, at night, doesn't matter when, one has fulfilled one's Torah obligation. V'al pi svarazo nahagu rov nashim she'enan mitpalalot shmona esrei. This is the reason why most women do not daven shmona esrei at all. Right? The Baal Tanya lived in the 18th century in Lithuania. Most women are not davening shmona esrei at all because they're not obligated to do so. Which means they don't always daven. Sometimes they have time. They might sometimes daven shmona esrei, but not regularly. Shacha, Erev means mincha. Mincha time, keneged korban shel ben ha'arbayim. Erev means mincha. The reason that women do not regularly daven shmona esrei, so when they wake up in the morning, they ritually wash their hands and say some little prayer, min haTorah, that's enough. And Chachamim required nothing more. That's the Shita of the Rambam, that's the Shita of the Shulchan Aruch, and that is the Shita quoted by the Shulchan Aruch of the Baal Tanya. But then he adds another opinion. Aval. There is, however, another opinion. Yesh Omrim, some poskim disagree with Rambam. Some poskim disagree with the Shulchan Aruch. According to this other view, Iker mitzvahs tefillah hi medivrei sofrim. According to this other view, which we know is the Ramban, because we discussed it earlier today, according to the Ramban, the tefillah is midrabanan, 100%, has no Torah dimension to it, unless you're be'et tzara. It's the Rabbanim, the Anshe Knesset Haggadolah. They're the ones who set up the tefillah, Shachris and Mincha, being obligatory according to the Rabbanan, and Ma'ariv being optional according to Chazal. Af al pi shu mitzvahs aseh medivrei sofrim shazman grama noshim peturis mikol mitzvahs aseh shazman grama afilu medivrei sofrim. Since Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv are all time-regulated mitzvahs, women are simply exempt, just like women are exempt from Kiddush Levana and Hallel, which are time-regulated mitzvahs. Af al pi chen, chiyavu otan betfila Shachris u'Mincha ho'il u'tfila zo bakashas rachamim. Nonetheless, women should feel obligated to daven Shachris and Mincha. V'chein Iker, you want my opinion? The Baal Tanya writes, women should be davening Shachris and Mincha. Women should be davening the Shmona Esrei for Shachris and Mincha. In fact, they're not doing it, and they're relying upon the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, and all that is fine and good, but I think that women should be davening Shachris and Mincha. That's the position of the Baal Tanya. That's as far as Shachris and Mincha are concerned. Ma'ariv, these are still the words of the Baal Tanya, Ma'ariv is optional even for men, and therefore, even though men might regularly be davening Ma'ariv, there's no reason why women should be obligated to do this. Now, according to the Shulchan Aruch Harav, he acknowledges that in fact women are not davening, except for a little bakasha, a little prayer every morning. That's what they're doing, and that's okay, but he would prefer that they daven regularly, Shachris and Mincha, and therefore he would prefer that if the woman davens and makes a mistake, she forgets V'tein talu matar in the winter, or she leaves out Ya'ala v'yavo in an occasion where it's a fatal error in tefillah, according to the Shulchan Aruch Harav, she should repeat Shmona Esrei if she made such a mistake. So here we have not exactly a machlokes, but a difference in approach between the Shulchan Aruch Harav and the other poskim. He agrees, min hadin, as far as halacha is concerned, that the other poskim are okay to rely upon, and in fact, most women are following the other poskim, but according to his preferred approach, women should be davening, and if they make a mistake, they should repeat the Shemona Esrei just like men do. Which of these two approaches is embraced by the Mishnah? Mishnah Berurah brings Rambam. According to Rambam, women are simply exempt because there's no time requirement in tefillah. If women just daven once a little prayer every day, then he brings, the Mishnah Berurah then quotes the Magen Avram, who taught us that in fact women are not davening, and in fact there's no obligation for them to do so, because one little prayer every morning is sufficient. Could be afternoon, could be evening. Then he brings the Ramban. The Mishnah Berurah then quotes the Ramban, whom we've seen over and over again, who holds that tefillah, beginning to end, is the Rabbanan, unless you find yourself be'et tzara, and therefore, according to the Ramban, nashim pturot, women are also exempt, and just like every other mitzvah aseh shazman grama. Nonetheless, women should be davening shachris and mincha. So you see that in this case, which occurs more or less in every page, there's an example of this in the Mishnah Berurah, where the Mishnah Berurah has embraced the approach of the Shulchan Aruch Harav, stricter approach in this case. Women should be davening shachris and mincha. In fact, they're not doing it, and in fact, they're not required to, because most poskim exempt them, but it's preferable that they daven shachris and mincha. V'chein ikar, again quoting the words of the Shulchan Aruch Harav, according to the Mishnah Berurah, this is das rova poskim. Rova poskim, most poskim, even though me'ikar hadin, most poskim hold that women are exempt, most poskim also agree with the Shulchan Aruch Harav that women should be encouraged. It would be better, it's preferable for women to daven shachris and mincha. Women should be taught to daven shachris and mincha. But as far as Ma'ariv is concerned, well, Ma'ariv is reshus, optional for men, and there's no reason at all why women have to accept that upon themselves. So given this machlokas amongst the poskim, we see clearly that the majority view is exempting women, but the minority view is worthwhile. It's good. It's preferable, and therefore, if there's some reasonable way to do it, women should be not required, but women should be encouraged to daven shachris and mincha. The Machzis HaShekel, in his commentary on the on the Magen Avram, right? Machzis HaShekel is a commentary on the Magen Avram, which in turn is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. He writes, Im Tadlik Techilah, on Erev Shabbos, when woman is lighting Shabbos candles, of course, when she lights Shabbos candles and accepts upon herself Shabbos, she's transforming a little bit of late Friday afternoon into Shabbos. Once she is accepting Shabbos upon herself by lighting Shabbos candles, now it is Shabbos for her. She has been Makadesh Shabbos. She has created the sanctity of Shabbos by accepting it upon herself through lighting candles late Friday afternoon. Well, what happens if she didn't daven mincha yet? Mincha has to be davened on Friday, not on Shabbos. Well, not on Leil Shabbos. Therefore, of course, she should daven mincha before lighting Shabbos candles. What if she made a mistake? She didn't daven mincha yet. Nonetheless, she lit Shabbos candles. Well, Kvar Kibla Shabbos. If she lit Shabbos candles, she has accepted upon herself Shabbos. Ech titpalel mincha shel. Now she cannot daven mincha, because if she davens mincha, she is saying it's still a weekday, it's still Friday. This is mincha of Friday. But she already accepted Shabbos by lighting the candles. Therefore, although she should have davened mincha before lighting candles, if she failed to daven mincha before lighting candles, now she is prohibited from davening mincha after lighting the candles. Lachein, therefore, hitzvicha litpalel avishtayim. Therefore, she's going to have to daven ma'ariv twice. If she failed to daven shachris or mincha, then, or if she davened incorrectly, left out, made a mistake with V'sein Talumata, for example, then the next tefillah has to be davened twice, once for itself, and a second time as a tashlum replacement for the incorrect earlier tefillah. Therefore, according to the Machzis HaShekel, women who are not davening Shachris and Mincha, they're okay. And such a woman who chooses once in a while to daven Shachris and Mincha and makes a mistake, well, she didn't have to daven the first time, so she surely doesn't have to repeat. But a woman who is following the advice of the poskim and davening Shachris and Mincha regularly, if she is following those poskim and davening Shachris and Mincha regularly and makes a mistake in the tefillah, then she has to repeat the following tefillah twice, once for itself and once tashlum for the mistaken tefillah. This is not only the approach of the Machzis HaShekel, this is the approach of the Chai Adam, for example. Chai Adam says, Isha tzricha litpalel mincha tchila. Woman has to daven mincha before lighting Shabbos candles. Dim lokein, because if she hasn't davened mincha yet, when she lights Shabbos candles, kevan shekvar kibul Shabbos, once she has accepted Shabbos, she's going to have to daven ma'ariv twice. So even though the woman is following the advice of the poskim and davening Shachris and Mincha regularly, but not Arvis, if she forgot Mincha, or didn't already lit Shabbos candles, or made a mistake in Mincha, which requires repeating Ma'ariv twice, even though she's not normally davening Ma'ariv at all, now she's going to have to daven Ma'ariv twice, once for Ma'ariv, the second time around for the tashlum, for the to make up for the missed prayer. Let's look at one final shita to round out the picture. The Abi Omer. Now, notice in passing that our whole subject today is not a subject of machlokes between Sephardic and Ashkenaz authorities. And of course, there are plenty of issues where Sephardic and Ashkenaz authorities disagree, and then members of each team will, of course, follow their rabbis. But in this case, we're not dealing with a conflict between Ashkenaz and Sephardic authorities, and therefore the great rabbis on each team are of equal weight for everyone. The Abia Omer, written by Rav Ovadia Yosef, the great Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, wrote as follows: Isha sheta'ata b'tfilata, a woman who made a mistake in davening Shmoneh Esrei. Lo amra ya'ala v'yavo b'shachris or mincha. She omitted by mistake. She forgot ya'ala v'yavo. In a case where that's a fatal error and requires repeating Shmoneh Esrei, V'chein im shachacha l'shol talumata. Similarly, if she forgot to mention rain in the winter, tzricha lachzor ulehitpalel ketakanas chazal. Just like a man would have to repeat the Shmona Esrei, she too must repeat Shmona Esrei. Shedin ha'isha b'tfila kedin ha'ish l'chol inyan. There's no difference at all between the halachas of men and the halachas of women davening. In every case where a man would have to repeat Shmona Esrei because of a mistake, women also must repeat Shmona Esrei because of that mistake. If the woman finds herself in this situation and she is repeating Shmona Esrei, it would be better if she would state the following condition. If I am truly obligated to repeat Shmona Esrei, then I'm davening a second time because I'm obligated to do so. But if the Rambam is right and the Shulchan Aruch is right, and that's a strong possibility, Tihiyeh Nadava, let my second repetition of the prayer be Nadava, be a voluntary sacrifice. And she can use the standard text without adding anything new to the text. After all, one of the many differences between Tfilas Chova, obligatory Shmona Esrei, and Tfilas Nedava, an optional Shmona Esrei, which you choose to offer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu whenever you want, one of the many differences between them is that Nedava, a voluntary Shmona Esrei, which you're allowed to do whenever you want. Well, not on Shabbos, not on Yom Tov, but a voluntary Shmona Esrei, which you're allowed to daven whenever you want, aside from Shabbos and Yom Tov, you're not allowed to use the standard text. What you must do is use the standard text and add something to at least one of the brachot. That's if it's a voluntary prayer. A woman who is repeating Shmona Esrei, it would be advisable to have in mind that according to those who hold she is required to repeat, this is the repetition. According to the Rambam and the others who hold she's not obligated to repeat, let this second Shmona Esrei be Nedava, be a voluntary prayer. But she doesn't have to add anything new to the text. She can use the standard text. Now, next week, I want to deal with the question of women, or men for that matter, eating or drinking before tefillah. Next week, this question is going to divide into two parts. Eating and drinking before davening on weekdays, and eating and drinking before davening and kiddush on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But that will be for next week. Until then, I wish you a good week and a safe week, and look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Rabbi Fink?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be going to New York next week just for a few days. I will be missing.
Oh, stay off the subway. Stay off the subway, okay?
I'll think about that. But I will be missing your shiur, unfortunately, and it's a very germane topic. Is there a way, are you going to be recording it?
In Yirtz Hashem, I'll record it, and if you have difficulty downloading the recording yourself, the Yael in the office, I'm sure will be able to help you do that.
Many, many thanks. Toda rabba. Shavua tov.
Okay, B'vakasha. Shavua tov.